Hi, I'm Tony Reynolds, and this is Will Skidmore. We're with Northwest Hydraulic Consultants, and today we're going to give you a brief introduction to ADCPs, how they work, and how we use them in an over-the-side moving boat deployment to support NHC's engineering and geoscience projects.
Basically, when we get to site, we're going to show you some calibrations we use to deal with the challenging conditions on the mighty Fraser. So we're going to be doing compass calibrations, and we're going to be doing a moving bottom test as well. So once we get to site, I'll see you again on camera, and here we go.
An ADCP is an instrument that measures the relative velocity and position of scatterers, sand, salt, minerals, etc. in the water column. It does this by sonifying or making noise in the water column and measuring the change in frequency, Doppler shift, of the reflected signal at various points in the water column. The unit we're using today is a TRDI River Ray ADCP, and it runs at 600 kHz. Doppler shift is a phenomenon we're all familiar with, whether you recognize it or not. It's the change in frequency of an emitted sound from a moving body. A higher frequency or pitch indicates that the body in motion is towards the receiver, our ears, or the ADCP transducer. And a lower frequency indicates that the body is in motion away from the receiver. To illustrate this, think of a fire engine with its siren passing us on a street. You'll notice that the pitch of the siren increases as it gets closer and decreases as it goes further away. So we get wee wah wee wah wee wah wee wah wee wah. That's Doppler shift. The Doppler shift then tells us whether the scatterers are moving closer to or further away from the sensing transducer and at what rate that is happening. By measuring the time of flight of the signal, the ADCP can then work out how far away that signal is being reflected from and thus calculate a velocity towards or away for a discrete bin of scatterers in the water column. Assuming that the scatterers move with the water, we can also assume that the velocity and direction of the scatterers equals those of the water in the area. By employing transducers oriented perpendicular to each other and inclined at some angle, we can resolve the towards or away direction and speed of the particles into XYZ components with respect to the instrument. To help deal with pitch and roll of the ADCP, they employ pairs of perpendicular transducers in a Janus arrangement and compare the pairs for reliability of the resolved direction. Fun fact, Janus is a Roman god with two horizontally opposed faces purported to be able to see into the future and the past. Now we need to convert these components into Earth-referenced coordinates so that we can tell where and in what direction on Earth the water is moving. And how does this feat of wizardry happen? It's done by recording the orientation of the instrument with respect to the Earth's local magnetic field using an internal compass or supplied heading angle, and recording its relative position as it moves along the Earth through bottom tracking or GPS. Bottom tracking is similar to water tracking in its use of a returned signal strength and Doppler shift to identify the bottom, ignoring fish and other organics, and track its movement with respect to the instrument. Assuming that the stream or riverbed doesn't move, pin in that one, then bottom track identifies bottom depth and the XY position of the instrument at any point in time. Now let's pull that pin off moving bottom. If we do have a moving bottom, such as we find in high flow conditions, or I suppose really loose bed material, then our position and related ship speed is going to be reported higher than the actual speed, and the compensated water speed and discharge measurement is going to be lower. In order to ensure that our instrument has proper references in order to transform the Cartesian measurements to Earth reference measurements, we need to perform a few field calibrations, and that's what we're going to demonstrate today.
I'm going to take a sound velocity with our sound velocity probe. So this is a time of flight probe. It's not a CTD. We're not measuring salinity or anything like that. It's just basically time of flight between these two plates here. And it'll calculate a sound velocity for us. We're going to input that sound velocity into our ODOM sounder, and that's going to be our extra depth reference for our ADCP, which is really useful when you get into challenging conditions. We probably don't need it here today because it's pretty calm, but you know, at the Batello during freshet, that extra depth reference really helps us out. So I'm going to throw this in, send it to the bottom, and bring it back up. So we'll have two profiles. We can split those two profiles into down and up, and we can compare them, see how close they are. We are technically in a salt wedge here, so probably going to be slight differences in the up and down, but yeah, it'll be close for what we want it for. And we're going to do a CTD cast after this to prove the sensor as well. So that's what we're doing. There we go. File. Open. We usually take the upcast because it's a little smoother. And we're going to get rid of those 0 depths. We're going to go down to 0.7-ish. That's where the ODOM, I think that's the ODOM draft pretty much. So we're going to chop out the top layer, resort it. And then all I really want to look at is this average. So I'm going to input this into the ODOM sounder. So we're getting depths to that sound velocity, 1477.45. And I'm going to save that to the project folder right now. 1477.45. So I'm going to input that into the sounder, which is below in the cuddy cabin here. Got an in-hole transducer. I'm going to go into I'm in the calibration menu right now, and I'm changing the sound velocity to 14. Oops. 1477. Now I can go back into depth mode, and there we go. Sound velocity corrected. It usually defaults to 1500 meters per second, which is kind of your default salt sound velocity. But yeah, that's pretty much it. now we're going to go and calibrate our compass because we're using GPS. It's got to figure out a transformation between bottom track and GPS. That's what's going on with the compass calibration, compensating for magnetic variations on the boat. Okay, so basically red is bad, dark green is good. We're just trying to rotate nice and slow and smooth. We're using iPac to navigate onto a predetermined line that we've drawn in, and we're going to try and follow that line as closely as possible. This is a line check for our heading, the heading offset that we're going to calculate. So we have the two choices here, stationary and loop test. I've had limited success with the loop test, closing it on the Fraser. Usually when in extreme conditions, I have lots of issues trying to close it. The other thing with the stationary in extreme conditions is it's a little scary being anchored during fresh head flows when you've got logs and stuff and crazy hydraulics coming down on you, and a moving bottom, so you might not even be able to anchor. So we're going to try stationary first, and we're going to try a loop. These are very mild conditions compared to what we normally deal with on this river, but we'll see how it goes. Tony's just deploying the anchor. We're just going to hang out and try and do a stationary test now. Okay, well, we got a results page up here, so it's saying no moving bottom, or if there is potential moving bottom, negative 0.012%, so pretty negligible.
Awesome.
Okay. So you're gonna loop around like this?
Yeah, I'm going to drop back. I'm going to do a loop out there, and I'm going to come back to this one.
Okay, so we got a similar result on that. Basically, it's saying moving bed velocity, MBV, is less than the minimum MBV criteria. No correction recommended. So the moving bottom is negligible with the loop test again. I'd be interested to see if we could close one in more challenging conditions.